Shemai, everybody. This is Jordan Fogel here. This is my final and my presentation for this course. My final is titled Kodiak-Alutiiq Common Core Values, the Physical Sphere. So before I get to cover the physical sphere of the Alutiiq Common Core Values, I first just want to go over briefly about some of the history of the Alutiiq people, just so that everybody is educated on what the Alutiiq were and are, because there still are many Alutiiq people still alive. As you can see, the Alutiiq are one of 8 Alaska Native peoples. They inhabited coastal south central Alaska for over 7,500 years, and the Alutiiq people have the reputation as being fierce hunters and gatherers. If you look down here below, you might be able to see that I posted a picture of all the boundaries of where all the natives of Alaska inhabited. Down here in south central Alaska on the coast, you can see in blue that the Alutiiq people inhabited Kodiak Island and all the neighboring islands that surround it. They inhabited Prince William Sound and the southern Kenai Peninsula, and they also inhabited almost all of the Alaska Peninsula right here. So the Alutiiq people were fierce hunters and gatherers, as I mentioned earlier, and the Alutiiq people hunted land mammals, they hunted whales, and they harvested fish in the fresh and saltwater ecosystems. One of the main mammals that they harvested in the ocean were sea otters. Sea otters have very dense and warm fur, and they used the fur of sea otters to keep themselves warm when the climate got really cold and bitter. The Alutiiq people ruled their homelands for thousands and thousands of years, and they were unchallenged for almost all of those years. They had zero competition for the most part. But unfortunately, when Russian explorers came to south central Alaska in the 1700s, this all changed for the Alutiiq people, and it spelled disaster for them. So in 1784, a Russian fur trader called Grigory Shelikov led a Russian assault on the Alutiiq people in Kodiak on a location called Refuge Rock. So as you can see right here in this picture to the left, there's Kodiak Island right here, in a location called Three Saints Bay, which was the first Russian establishment on Kodiak and in all of Alaska. We have the Russians that have made an establishment here. We got houses. We have Russian people on the shore right here. And we have a Russian sail ship right here. And then we got Alutiiq hunters coming in to investigate what was going on. On the picture right here on the right, we have Refuge Rock right here. So Refuge Rock is a very interesting place. So as you can see right here, it's an island during high tide, but when the water goes out and the tide goes out, it's low tide, it exposes a land bridge that runs all the way from the tip of the island right here to the mainland of Kodiak here. And when it's low tide, anybody can walk from the mainland right here to Refuge Rock, this little island right here. And so whenever the Alutiiq people felt threatened and they were in dire need, they would usually take refuge on Refuge Rock right here because they felt safe. And when the Russians found out about this in 1784, they used it against the Alutiiq people. So 1784, on the day that the assault or massacre, if you want to call it, happened with the Alutiiq people here, they waited for the tide to go out. They set up a bunch of cannons right here on this little peninsula, and they deployed a bunch of Russian soldiers over here, and they killed hundreds of Alutiiq people, and not even one Russian was lost. And it was very traumatic for the Alutiiq people, and it kind of spelled disaster from them because after this happened, the Russians pretty much took control of all of Kodiak Island, and the Alutiiq started to lose their heritage after this. So since the Refuge Rock massacre, the Alutiiq heritage has lost a lot of popularity. And after this happened, the Russians did everything in their power to try to exterminate the Alutiiq heritage and culture from all of history. They tried to destroy their language, they tried to destroy their way of life, they tried to force the Alutiiq people to adopt the Russian way of life. They tried to teach them Russian. If they refused, they tried to kill them all, and they killed thousands in the process with either disease or physical force. But fortunately, the Russians were not successful in doing this, and the Alutiiq heritage still lives on, even though it's not as popular as it used to be. It's getting harder and harder to find people that are fluent in the Alutiiq language. A lot of the elders that have existed for a long time and have taught generations how to speak the Alutiiq language are getting harder to find, so the heritage isn't as common as it used to be. But despite all of this, it has made the Alutiiq and the Alaskan Native people as a whole grow closer than ever. So moving on from the Alutiiq history and on to the Alutiiq Common Core values, I have listed here all of the Alutiiq Common Core values. So starting with the top one right here, we have ethnical, also known as coincidence. We have spiritual, also known as spirit, and then we have cognitive, or fire, or process. We have social, which also means the people. And then written in red down here, we have physical, and that's the one that I decided to write about. So I'm going to go over some of the values of the physical sphere. This means our land and ties to our homeland. That's the first value. Second value is taking care of our land, which also can be seen as stewardship of animals, land, sky, and waters. And then our final value of the physical sphere is our way of being alive, which also can be viewed as a subsistence lifestyle respectful and sustained by the natural world. So, starting off with our land and ties to our homeland, I have listed here our home, our land, our people. I got a beautiful picture of Kodiak Island right here, out the road in Menasha Bay. So, the land resembles the Alutiiq people's identity on Kodiak. Without the land, the Alutiiq people wouldn't have the reputation as fierce hunters and gatherers for their people. And without the land, the Alutiiq people wouldn't have a lot of their traditional ways of life, for example, such as living off the land. The second value of the physical sphere is taking care of our land, and also known as stewardship of animals, land, sky, and waters. I have listed here respect the land, respect the wildlife, and one of my all-time favorite quotes, which goes, "If you don't respect the land will not respect you." This is true to a lot of Alutiiq people and a lot of Alaskan natives. So what does it mean by taking care of the land? The value of taking care of the land is what you call home is simple. If you don't take care of the land will not take care of you. With this being said, the land isn't recyclable and reusable in a lot of ways, so if you don't treat it with respect as if there is no tomorrow, then the land is doomed. If fish and animals are harvested from the land, the appropriate foundation for respect laid out by leaving nothing to waste is to use everything that is used from the animal or the fish that you harvested, such as using the meat for food, using the skin and guts as clothing, and using the bones harvested from animals as fish as weapons and jewelry. In addition, the people never took more than what they needed from the land, and that is the ultimate way of showing a lot of respect for the land from a lot of the viewpoints from the Alutiiq people. Moving on to the third and final value of the physical sphere is our way of being alive, a subsistence lifestyle respectful and sustained by the natural world. I have here listed down the traditional way of life, the traditions, and I have a quote listed here. Traditions are passed down from generations before and not from legends. The subsistence way of life, or traditional harvest as elders prefer, is the all-encompassing way of life where its people maintain a regular interdependency within the natural world. living off the land as a source of food, shelter, clothing, transportation, and fuel, through gathering practices used to gather and processes resources firsthand are passed down from generations. So a lot of Alutiiq people, the elders, would teach everything that they know to the next generation. They would pass on what they have learned. And it goes by one of my all-time favorite quotes, and it goes like this, and I have it listed right here. Traditions are passed down from generations before, not from legends. Okay, well, this presentation is almost over, but before it's over, I have a little feature presentation right here. I got a short little video I would like everybody to watch, so I'm going to open this up and get it started.
Been on hunts where guys were just being completely obnoxious. You know, they weren't having a good time. But those same trips, we didn't get anything. And after a couple go rounds with those guys, I told my dad, I said, if they're going, I'm not going. And he said, okay, well, I guess they're not going. Every time I've been out with my dad or my brother or even just myself, you know, I've always had that respect. I've always come home with something.
So in Yupik tradition, whenever we catch something, we thank it, right? So you catch a seal and you bring it into your boat and you're like, thank you very much for giving your life to me, because that's what the seal did. It chose to give it up its life to you so you can eat it and survive.
As far as respecting animals, whether it's sea mammals, birds, or land animals, I think it's invaluable that you do that. When I'm out hunting, I don't shoot every animal I see, every bird I see, every sea mammal I see. If we have success and we're boating back, for example, we see other sea mammals that we were just hunting, an hour or two earlier. On land animals, the same way. I've passed up moose, I've passed up caribou. It really depends on where you're at and what's going on, and whether or not you can take care of what you might have to deal with if you were to shoot them right there. So those kinds of things come into play. So I try to, as far as partners, I mentioned people that I hunt with. I really look for same value. My wife hunts with me. She's my total hunting partner. She does marine mammal hunting. She does everything with me. So we do this together. It's a family affair.
As I've started to learn about hunting, my father wasn't a hunter, and so I reached out to my uncle and to my grandmother, and in learning that, she was telling me, you can't waste any bit of the moose, every bit is harvestable, and shared with me about how they used to dry the sacks by blowing in of the stomach, and using that as a water container. So they'd blow it out and dry it in that hollow form, and tie it off and cinch it off, and that would be what they would carry water in. So just being reminded that the practices of use of an animal, can be very different with the Athabascan beliefs. Just it's important to use every animal, every bit of the animal, and really respect it and show that you are grateful for what it has provided you.
And I believe that, if you don't have the respect for the animal won't give themselves to you.
And that was the video. It kind of covered a lot of the principles that are needed in the physical sphere of the Alutiiq Common Core values. It has respect, the land, and the subsistence way of life. So if you don't respect the land or the animals, it will not respect you. And here are my references. I hope you enjoyed what I covered here, and thank you for a great semester, and I will see you all later.